Welcome to episode 2 of season 5 of Third Song In with Chris Erickson and Tom Polachek.
This is Third Song In with Chris Erickson and Tom Polachek.
For today's episode, we are welcoming a very special guest, a fellow WashU alum, a doctor, a retired orthopedic surgeon. I don't like to say retired because I think you're still working as a doctor, but I don't think you're cutting people anymore. But welcome to the show, Photine Liakos. So I think I got the name right. It should after 35 or so years, but welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Good to see you guys. Been enjoying the show. I listen to you guys when I go on walks.
Nice.
Excellent.
I go on walks and listen to us too, and then I shout out stuff. So all my neighbors think that I'm crazy.
Well, they probably think I am too, because I start laughing just while I'm walking down the street by myself. So they probably think I'm crazy too.
Well, I gave a partial introduction, but frankly, your bio is very interesting and rather long, and in my mind, very broad. You are what I would call a Renaissance woman. You graduated from Washington University undergraduate in 1988, which is when I graduated. You graduated with a degree in comparative arts and classics. Was it a double major?
No, actually, comparative arts had a couple of different focuses you could do, and I chose to do classics for it.
Gotcha. And then proceeded immediately, though, to medical school, correct?
Yes.
And if I remember, conversations with you again, way back when, that was always your plan. You took all of the classes that were necessary to go directly to medical school, but you didn't want to major in one of the sciences.
Right. WashU had this program back when we were there, and I don't know if it's still there, and I don't know if it's still the way it was, but it was called the Scholars Program in Medicine. And you interviewed when you were in high school, and you interviewed at the med school too. And you got a provisional acceptance. But the goal was they didn't want you to major in the sciences. They wanted you to kind of pursue whatever interested you, kind of take a humanist approach to the whole aspect of medicine. And so they kind of gave us the freedom to choose a major that was not part of the pre-med, which was great. That was perfect. That was what sold me on it.
Yeah, I can't imagine you taking like the traditional route that most of the people we knew who went to med school took. Because I know you were, even back then, heavily interested in the arts in general.
Yeah.
Obviously classics and that kind of thing. But also I know music, and if I recall, even, I can remember some conversations about film, and I think you might have been interested in theater, although I was not. But to me, that's a great way to train a doctor, as far as I'm concerned.
I do too. I think by doing that, you get more of an understanding of the human condition and increases the empathy and makes it easier to relate and interact with patients, not on that purely clinical level.
And you then took another, as far as I can tell, kind of an unusual step in your medical training and as your medical career, which is that you did an orthopedic internship and residency, again, all at WashU, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, WashU lifer, basically. Yeah, when I went to medical school, I really didn't know what I wanted to specialize in. And I was very adamant that I was not going to be a surgeon, because surgery scared me. I wasn't that kind of person. I was probably going to go into something else. My mom wanted dermatology. My dad wanted ophthalmology, and I was kind of up in the air. And so during our third year, you get to choose your rotations. And I chose to do surgery first to get it out of the way because I was scared of it and I really didn't want anything to do with it. So I'm just going to get it out of the way and be done. And my first 3 weeks were orthopedics, and I was pretty much cooked at that point. I did the 3 weeks. I loved everything about it. I loved the fact that it ran the gamut of patients, from infants in, a NICU to patients at the end of their life. And that basically it was a quality of life kind of job, where you improve people's quality of life and you can really make a difference. And I like puzzles, and I like figuring things out, and I like putting things together. And I figured out I actually like doing surgery and being in surgery. So it was a surprise to everyone, including me, that I went into orthopedics, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
one of the things I was interested in when we talked about having you as a guest is your basically your gender in that particular area of practice. As a personal injury attorney, I deal with lots of physicians and frankly, lots of orthopedic physicians, lots of depositions, meeting people, treating physicians, experts, whatever it may be. And frankly, I've never deposed a female orthopedic surgeon in my entire career. And I'm assuming back in the early 90s, the percentages were probably even lower than they are now. So what was your experience as far as being a woman in that practice in the early stages?
Well, it was interesting. I was only the fourth woman to ever go through the WashU program. And at the time I was there, of the 20 residents we had, I was the only woman.
No kidding.
Wow.
Which was interesting. I actually had some faculty say they really didn't think women belonged in orthopedics, which was really great when you're starting out. But strangely enough, some of those faculty actually ended up being some of my strongest supporters and allies, which really was surprising and very encouraging. It was tough, though, because it did feel at times there was a double standard kind of what I had to do to be acceptable and what the guys got away with, basically. And being a very organized person too, I kind of ended up being in charge of the call schedule, in charge of the call room, kind of the taking care part of things.
Yeah.
But you're right, orthopedics really has a very small percentage of female physicians. And what's actually crazy is back when I was a resident, it was about 9% of orthopedic surgeons were female.
Wow.
And now, I don't know, 30 some years later, 11% of orthopedic surgeons are women. So
Wow.
it really hasn't changed. It's really brutal. And one of the things we do to renew our boards is we have to read some articles that the Academy wants us to read to educate ourselves about current orthopedic issues. And one of the articles this year was actually about the lack of diversity in orthopedics. As far as women, as far as minorities, and we lag behind pretty much every other specialty. It used to be like cardiac surgery and cardiothoracic surgery and neurosurgery were all worse than us. Now we're the worst. We actually have the lowest percentage, the lowest diversity, which is disheartening because we treat patients of all genders, ethnicities, age, everything. So it's odd. I was in a practice actually where there were 2 women. I was one of 2 women in a practice, which is very unusual.
Again, speaking from my own experience in dealing with orthopedic surgeons, there is a certain mindset. They seem to self-select a certain personality, as far as I can tell. And I'm being diplomatic, but frankly, there are a bunch of assholes in that practice. Certainly, they seem to be a little more arrogant than your GP or frankly any specialty that I've dealt with, at least in my own legal practice, which I could see would kind of work to push away people, women, minorities, whatever it may be, because it does seem still, as far as I'm concerned, like a boys' club.
It very much can be. It very much can be. And I have run into some very arrogant people, and I have some friends from residency who are the best people ever. It really runs the gamut. Some of the younger docs are a little bit better. They are coming in with a little different attitude, but it very much has been a boys' club for a long time. And it was interesting to try and see what they were saying to try and attract more women and minorities into the field, and representation matters. And that's what the study basically said. If you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody that looks like you, it's harder to get interested in it. The other aspect of orthopedics that turns people off is the lifestyle. Because you are busy and you do lots of surgeries and the compensation is decent for a doctor, but the ER call and the on-call responsibilities can be pretty onerous.
Yeah, I can see that.
And they're not some things that can easily be offloaded to mid-level providers. So it can be a lot of work.
Because you need to be there, basically.
You need to be there. Yeah, you need to be there. And when you're on call or when trauma comes into the emergency room, you're the one who goes in. And you can never predict that. You can have a weekend where nothing happens, or you can have a weekend where you have an ice storm and you're basically operating 24 hours straight.
So you were in private practice then for roughly 20 years as an orthopedic surgeon?
I was in private practice for Yeah, about 20 some years. And then my dad started getting dementia and my mom got Parkinson's, and they lived separately and lived locally. And I was finding I was taking all this FMLA time to take him to doctor's appointments and surgeries and everything. And my husband and I kind of talked it out because he was traveling. I had two kids who were in junior high and grade school. And it was hard to juggle all that plus call plus work. So I decided to step away from practice for a few years and take care of my parents. And I did. I kept them at home until the end. It was a great decision. I was home with my kids all through high school, which was great. I do not regret it. I think it's one of the best decisions I ever made. But my parents passed away a couple of years ago, and I have not gone back to my practice. I still do see patients. I go to this free clinic in one town over, and we basically see indigent patients, patients without insurance, people who are struggling, between jobs, don't have insurance. And it is probably the best medical experience I've ever had in my life. I don't do surgery, but I love it. I feel like I'm really making a difference, and I feel this is such an underserved population. It really is very rewarding being able to work there.
That's fantastic. That's really great.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is the case, but I can't remember, I wanted to confirm it, was while you were practicing as a surgeon, were you also the orthopedic doctor for Northern Illinois University?
I wasn't officially one of the team doctors, but I treated all the foot and ankle stuff. So if you saw one of the NIU football players like rupture an Achilles on the field, it was usually me operating on them 2 days later. So I saw a lot. I saw a lot of the athletes. If it was ever a foot and ankle problem, they came to see me.
Yeah, I don't think I realized it at the time, but insofar as I ruptured both Achilles in a period of about 8 years, I really wish I had known. Not that, frankly, my doctor did a great job, but I certainly would have at least given you a call the first time it happened, because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Definitely. I mean, one of the funny things about even being retired now is it's amazing how many friends and neighbors and things still call me when something happens. I'll get a phone call from urgent care. I'll get a phone call from an emergency room. I'll get people texting me x-rays, and it's great. I love it. I mean, I love helping out that way. So never hesitate to call if you guys have an ortho problem.
But I was just going to say, it's amazing. It seems to me that kids are getting these serious injuries at a younger age, because my stepdaughter's, she's now first year at Duke, but when she was 16, I think she tore her ACL, and then a year later she tore her MCL, and a year later she tore her ACL. And so 2 surgeries before she was 17 years old. And it just seems that that's a more common, it seems to me, I mean, I know kids got injured when we played sports when we were younger, but it just seems that they're pushing themselves more and more for whatever reason.
No, we see it too. We see it all the time. We see it in baseball. We see it in softball. We see it in soccer. And part of the reason is when we were kids, we were not playing soccer year round. We were not playing baseball year round. And these kids are, and they're playing it at a higher level at a much younger age. So when you have an 8-year-old who's starting to do baseball, or an 8-year-old doing, Pop Warner football or something like that, their body is not fully grown. They're not at a point where they definitely have control of their ligaments and control of their muscles and everything. And a lot of that repetitive injury leads to problems when they're in high school. I mean, it's crazy how many kids are getting elbow surgery that professional baseball players get.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect a 16-year-old to be getting that. You wouldn't expect an 18-year-old to have had 2 ACL surgeries. And part of that really is the overtraining, the over competitiveness, the year round, the no breaks. I mean, I don't know how it was for your high school, but at my high school, people played multiple sports. Like we had a guy on the football team who was absolutely a great receiver. And then he was a wrestler during the winter. And then he was on the track team in the spring. And he didn't play one sport. And a lot of our guys were like that. They were not one sport players. And coaches actually kind of like not one sport players because they're easier to coach. They're not set in their ways and they're more flexible. So I think it's kind of a bit of a disservice, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, that we do to kids because we do this year round thing for them at such a young age and put so much pressure on it and their bodies.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of club sports in general. My wife was a volleyball player at WashU, and then she coached for years until my boys were born. And she had girls, even back then, she coached volleyball, and she had girls, who would get a scholarship to play in college because they were good and their team was good, but they would quit or have to quit after freshman or sophomore year because of a shoulder surgery
Yep.
or because they were just flat out burned out from playing 10 months a year every year. And
Yep.
and it irritates me. And my boys, of course, have played club soccer. I know Chris is one of his sons plays at a high level club soccer, and I don't think it's the best way to go. And I know Chris was a multi-sport athlete in high school. I was as well. And my only issue with that, and when you made the comment that coaches prefer that in terms of coachability, my problem is that I think they pay a lot of lip service to wanting their athletes to play multiple sports. But if there's a conflict, they get really pissed off.
Yes.
And that, by the way, that includes my wife. Back when she was coaching, she would talk about that. But then if somebody had a softball game, she would go out of her mind if they were missing practice. So I think that
it kind of makes it tough because you kind of have to talk the talk and walk the walk on that. But I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. The good news, I guess, is from my perspective, it does appear that medicine has progressed to the point where we're doing a better job of protecting these kids. But you can't change the biology of like you said, an 8-year-old kid, or even a 12-year-old kid, or even sometimes a 15-year-old kid. They're not mature enough to be
right.
Playing 12 months a year. Well, let's turn our attention a little bit to the other side of your bio, which the classics comparative art side, because one of the other things that you are, as well as a doctor, is a published author. You, I know, have had some essays published in one specific book that came out in the recent past, but I understand you also do some freelance writing and editing, and I'd be interested to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, writing is something that goes back to me for high school. I was creative writer there. I was editor of our literary magazine. I was an editor of our high school newspaper. I took a lot of lit classes. I was a few credits short of an English lit minor when we were at WashU. So writing was always part of my life until I went to med school and until I went to residency and until I went to private practice and basically did not write a word other than, prescriptions for years. And then we started doing more marketing for our practice, and we had this marketing group come in, and I would hate the copy that they would write for our brochures and for our web page. And so I would edit it and I would change it and I would say the grammar is off and, you have a dangling participle, and everyone would kind of get annoyed at me, but I'm like, no, this is crap. I'm not putting this on our website. So that kind of started me back a little bit into some of the writing. And when I left work, it kind of was a bit of an outlet for me at home to kind of write some things. So sometimes if I was frustrated with some of the issues going on with mom and dad, I would just sit at my computer and write it out. I'd write an essay about it, or I'd write a poem about it, and then it would just sit on my computer, but it was out of my brain. And during the pandemic, a couple of physicians that I follow put out a call for essays from women physicians because they wanted to put an anthology together. And I said, well, I have some essays, and I kind of went through my stack. I wrote a few more, and I submitted 3 of them to them, and they got accepted. And we actually had this book published, What We Bring to the Practice of Medicine, Perspectives from Women Physicians. And it came out in 2023. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the essays in it. And it was great to have my writing go out in the world. Since then, I've done some essays for a couple narrative medicine online journals and written some poetry for them. And I've become a beta reader for novels that are being published. And I just did my first medical sensitivity read on a novel. So I'm trying to get a little bit into that side of publishing, editing, kind of doing those kind of services, and probably start working on another book, maybe of essays of my own. So that's kind of where I am with that.
No surprise, as I said, having known you as an undergrad, and always a little surprised that your whole plan was to go to medical school in the first place, because you certainly didn't strike me like most of the gunners we knew that were planning to go to medical school and were, majoring in biology or chemistry or whatever it might be. So that's really interesting. Tell us, you told us the title of the anthology is What We Bring to the Practice of Medicine. Where is it available?
You can buy it on Amazon.
Great. Awesome.
Barnes and Noble. It's from Kent University Press. It's on their website as well.
Well, we will post a link in our As Mentioned
Great.
page on the website, so people will be able to find it that way. I recommend it. As far as the freelance stuff you're doing, kind of, I guess, since then, sounds like, is that something, just in terms of the nuts and bolts of it, is that something that you'll be in a position to do for compensation? Is it stuff where you kind of just donating your time to certain?
Mostly I've been donating my time to friends who are like in my writing group and things like that. And that's basically just because we're friends and we critique each other. But there have been a couple opportunities that have come up for me that have been compensated. And I'm kind of looking eventually to kind of set up a website and do this freelance.
The reason I ask is just because I know, it doesn't sound like you're necessarily going to go back into the operating theater. And I know that you're an empty nester because we talked about that the other day a little bit. So it sounds like you've got some time maybe to do a completely different thing coming, in the future.
That's the thing I'm working on. I've done some consulting too with some physicians who do physician coaching, and I've kind of helped them with their presentations and their websites and things like that. So I'm trying to bring this editing capability into nonfiction and fiction and kind of get that off the ground. And the other thing I'm doing that kind of came to me when I was taking care of my parents is some patient advocacy. And that's something that's really in its infancy for me right now. But I would like to help people navigate the medical system as a physician. So when people are in the hospital, the questions to ask, how to organize going home. I did so much work keeping my parents at home and learned so much about taking care of elderly people in their home, managing appointments, managing home care, managing all of that. And I'm pretty passionate about helping people get through that. It's tough being our age and our generation. And I don't know where your parents are on this journey. But, when you have kids and parents, it is hard to juggle between the two. And if I'm struggling to get things done through insurance, through doctors' offices, and I'm in the know, and I'm a physician and I know the workarounds, what are lay people doing? How are they getting things done? So
yeah, that's yet another reason I'll be calling you, because I am through at least part of what you've gone through in the past, and I could use all the help I can get. So
I'm happy to do it. I am happy to do that. That is something I'm passionate about, trying to help people navigate that with their elderly parents, because it's hard.
Yeah, it's
really hard.
I find that I need help for sure. So again, you'll be getting more calls. You'll be getting emails. Like I said at the beginning, I think that I knew that you were going to be an interesting interview, and I have a million other questions because we haven't even gotten to how much of a pop culture nerd you are, and I think we're going to turn our attention to that. But I did want to point out that you're probably the biggest Beatles fan I've ever known. And that, you can tell if you follow you on Facebook at all that there are many, many Beatles posts. And I know that you turned your kids on to the Beatles and all of their music at a very early age. Well, something I didn't know is that you're a Tolkien nerd, that you're a big fan of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy and all of that. So frankly, you're going to have to come back because I have a lot of questions. I know you have a connection even to the world of comic books, and that's a thing for me. In fact, the last time I think we saw each other face to face was at C2E2 in Chicago about 5 or 6 years ago, where we were nerd parents using our kids as camouflage so that we could go. And
100%. 100%.
So there's a lot more I'd like to ask, but just because of the time frame I think everybody has here, let's talk a little bit about music.
Okay.
We like to create a playlist. When we have a guest, we like to see if we can come up with a playlist. We ask our guests to come up with a theme that allows each of us to pick some songs and try to meet that theme. Recently, we've been posting that as a special playlist through Third Song In, along with our regular season-long playlist that we do. And you had what I thought was a great idea as a theme for a playlist, something we hadn't done before, either on the show or Chris and I over the last 20 years. I don't think we've ever addressed it. So what was the theme that you thought would work well?
I thought reunion would work well.
I can't believe we didn't think of that.
I know, I'm annoyed myself, but we get to do it today. So
yes, there you go. What I think we'll do is we will take turns presenting our songs. You gave me a peek at your songs ahead of time, Fo. So you have 4 songs that I want you to go through, but we'll kind of alternate as we go through, I think.
Okay.
Chris, I think you and I each had more than 3, but are we going to stick with 3?
Yeah, we can stick with 3. I mean, I'm ready if we deviate, and you usually have 5 or 6 alternatives you want to mention to the audience.
Yeah, I got stuff in my head. Sure, that's
honorable mentions.
Exactly.
Honorable mentions, exactly.
Exactly. But I think a 10-song playlist will work out real well. Why don't we start with you, Fo? What's the first song you came up with, or the first one you want to tell us about that relates to the theme?
The first one that came to me was Word Up by Cameo. And again, I kind of approached, I've been tasked with doing reunion playlists for a while for some reason. Somehow I ended up doing my high school reunion playlists. I ended up doing one for med school. So it's kind of something I've done before, but I've never done a WashU years one. So this was kind of fun. So I was trying to think back, because for me, a lot of the music is the stuff I danced to. And I think we danced a lot when we were in college, far more than I see my kids doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we would dance at parties. We would dance at campus events. We would go to clubs. I mean, I remember going to Jimmy's, which was this bar that was an old bank. And you guys have mentioned it. And I I was on the trail and you guys mentioned it. And I basically shouted, but I loved that place.
We could not remember that name for the life of us. I was researching for hours. I couldn't figure it out until somebody told me.
So people walking by me were probably wondering why I was standing in the street going, Jimmy's. But I loved that place. I loved that place. There was a place in the Central West End called Zone 8. I mean, I loved going to those dance clubs. And so when I was making this list, I was thinking of music I was dancing to, or that made me want to dance. And Word Up is one of the songs I remember not only dancing, but singing along to it and kind of shouting it out with everybody else there. And that's why it made the list. It just instantly makes me think of college.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I hadn't thought of that song until I saw it on your list. And I thought, yep, that was playing all the time.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to give us your first one?
Sure. I went in a totally different direction. I went more with songs about reunions. And then my ultimate playlist is a reunion of an artist, a group that I liked. So I went with one of my favorite bands. I think they're overlooked. I got to see them at a really intimate place when I was much younger. It's a band called the Everybody Fields. And Jill Andrews, who continues to sing, she's gone a little more pop. I think she redid the, what's the name of that? Total Eclipse of the Heart, that song. So that sort of stuff. It's a good version, but she's gotten a little too poppy for me. She's got a beautiful voice. And what I liked about them is the male lead singer, Sam Quinn, had a really, used this term before for the lead singer for Wussy, a really fragile voice. But when they sang together, their voices harmonized so nicely. Like her voice was strong and proud, and his was very much a complimentary voice. It was always very wavering. He sings a little bit more on this one than she does, but it's a song called Good to Be Home. It's from their first full album, I think, called Plague of Dreams. It's just a great song talking about like they're driving home. They're from Tennessee. I don't know if it's actually about Tennessee. Just think about all the great stuff that they did and looking forward to it. And it just has it's a slower song, but it's much more upbeat than the stuff I usually recommend on here. So it's not going to depress you.
But we still have more to hear from us. So
we
still may have.
I got you on that part.
So my first song for this playlist is I went also a different approach completely. And basically, I was looking for music performed by bands that were reunited, basically getting the band back together type stuff. The first song I'm recommending is The Boys Are Back in Town, which also sounds by theme to be a reunion song. A lot of artists have performed that song, but I think originally it was Thin Lizzy. Yeah. And what I was looking for was a good one where they played it as a reunion, like a live reunion concert or something like that. And I didn't really find a good one. So I'm recommending The Boys Are Back in Town from Jailbreak, which is their 1976 album. And that one kind of it kind of comes to the theme from two different directions. I was trying to find a good, hey, you know, they got together 20 years later, and I didn't really find a good one. So because it's about people getting back together, and it's just a great song. It's a classic rock song, which I don't often pick, but I think it'll be a good one for this playlist. Which takes us to your next one, Phil. What do you have?
My next one is another big dance one, and I actually remember dancing at your fraternity house to this one with everyone yelling the words, and it's "Burning Down the House" by the Talking Heads.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that was played a lot when we were on campus.
We recently talked about overrated and underrated bands, and Chris and I both agree that we think the Talking Heads are greatly overrated. But part of that, I think, at least for me, comes from the fact that we played it constantly at parties in the house, and you know, it just seemed to always be there. And I'd always listen to songs, and everybody was dancing and singing and loving the songs, and I thought, these guys are pretentious. I don't like these guys.
You know, it's such a formative WashU thing, though, because they were so huge when we were there. I remember going to the movie theater on Del Mar. I can't remember the name of the movie theater on Del Mar.
Was that the Varsity? I think it might have been Varsity.
I think it was the Varsity. Yeah, the Tivoli was up on Clayton, but yeah, the Varsity. I remember going to the Varsity and seeing their documentary Stop Making Sense.
Oh, yeah.
When I think I was a freshman. And it was probably, other than Spinal Tap, it was probably the first music documentary I had ever gone to see, you know, in a theater. And it was actually incredible. Yeah, you know, there's a few songs of theirs I like. I don't like everything. And I do think in some ways a lot of it is manufactured, and David Byrne kind of has a role that he plays.
Yeah, that was our discussion.
Yeah, but there are certain songs, like I said, that just take me back.
For sure.
This is one that takes me right back. I'm on campus. There's a sticky beer covered floor and I'm dancing at your fraternity house, and there's a mashup on the floor, and it's great.
Yeah, that floor was always sticky, even when we weren't having a party.
Always.
It was gross.
Even when I would come over to like look at formal pictures or something, and I would walk through that room, it would always be sticky.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Squish, squish, squish.
Oh, God.
It's like the back of the bars we worked at, Tom. Like you'd go back, and it constantly just your feet would be sticking to it. It's so nasty.
I'm trying to explain that to my kids, because my kids like really have no concept of this. The bars they go to now are not like that. And I was trying to explain to them, and the closest I could get was, imagine Abercrombie like from 15 years ago with the music and the loud music and the dark lights and everything. And imagine the floor was sticky. And that's kind of the places we used to go to.
And clouds of smoke everywhere.
Exactly, and clouds of smoke everywhere.
All right, Chris, what's your second choice?
All right, very similar. For some reason, a lot of mine are about artists who are on the road and they can't wait to get home to their house, their home, their family. So this one is a song by Willie T. Taylor, very folky guy. He was in a band. So I'm gonna have two post factos after this one. So I can't remember the name of the band he was in. But also the reason I like this song so much is there's two versions of it. And one of them, the song is called The Very Best. And it comes from I'm the very best at missing you. And it's all about wanting to get home. And the final verse, it's funny, I listened to a podcast, and I guess the person didn't have the rights to the music, and she read the lyrics, and it was awful. But I'm going to continue to read the lyrics. So the end of it is, I'm driving through the night and I'll make it by the morning. Sweet darling, I'll be resting on your breast. And it might not be too good at most things I do, but I'm the very best at missing you. So this one's a very uplifting, positive one. The other one, and this is the second post facto because I can't remember the name of the band, and I like their stuff quite a bit. I thought it'd be on my list, but it's not, is the same thing, but the end of the song changes. He cheated on her, and he's racing home to hopefully save their relationship. And by the time he gets there, she's gone. So it's a very, very different approach, which I think is interesting. But Willie T. Taylor's version is the one that I'm recommending. Uplifting and all about getting home to the one you love.
Cool. I haven't heard that one.
Same.
My second song for the list is a live performance of Carl Perkins' Cadillac which is originally a Drive-By Truckers song. In 2021, Mike Cooley, Patterson Hood, and Jason Isbell did a live show. I don't remember where they performed, but it was the first time the three of them had performed on stage together, as far as I know, since Isbell left Drive-By Truckers. And that was a big change. When he left, I thought that, first of all, Drive-By Truckers would fold, because I just felt like, although he was the newest guy, that he was so important to that band. Turns out I was completely wrong. They've put out probably 3 great albums since then, but he skyrocketed, and that is now considered one of the best songwriters in the world as far as country and all country music is concerned. But they got together and they played a bunch of Drive-By Truckers songs. They played a few Jason Isbell solo songs. I think they might have done one of Patterson Hood's songs too from one of his solo works. But it was definitely a reunion of 3 really, really talented guys who clearly, although they split apart as a band, I think they did it for the right reasons, and they clearly still respect each other, love performing together. It's a great album. The whole album is really good, and I recommend listening to the whole album. But I just picked what I thought was one of the best performances on the album, which was Carl Perkins' Cadillac. So that is my second reunion song, which takes us back to our special guest. What do you got?
Back to me. So my third song is one that I remember listening to first semester freshman year, and it felt like on campus I was listening to a lot of the pop music, or Springsteen was really big that year, and Bon Jovi was really big, and all those kind of big name bands. And this one I don't remember a lot of people listening to, and I was really getting into my alternative stage. This was when I wore a lot of black. And got my ear double pierced and had my face. But anyway, Whisper to a Scream, Birds Fly by Icicle Works, which was something that, I brought to college with me. I had it on a cassette. I used to listen to it all the time. And it was one of those songs that really didn't get a lot of attention at the time necessarily, but has kind of become more of a classic of the 80s since we've moved away from the 80s. And I'm just going to be annoying and being like, I liked it way back when.
Yeah, no, you did.
I'll do that every once in a while.
Yeah, that is a great song. That's one, you're right, that I don't remember listening to a lot back then, but finding its way onto playlists later on, like after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's really good. Chris, what's our 8th song for this special playlist? All
right, here's where I bring us all down. So one of my favorite bands, I feel they're totally unappreciated, is The Ghost of Paul Revere. Their later albums were a little more upbeat, but their earlier albums had much more of a darker side. I mean, in fact, the album cover is black with the skeleton on it. It's almost like there's a phase where my son, who's at NC State, was listening to like pirate music, like, shanties and stuff like that. So he'd be sending me that stuff. Some of the songs on this album have that sort of feel to it. This one is called After Many Miles. It's kind of hard to tell if it's about a guy who's going to the grave of his love to dig her up, or if he's waiting to die so that he can join her in heaven. I'm choosing the second one, but clearly
either way, really upbeat, both of those things.
Yeah, I told you. Actually, the song itself is actually upbeat. It's just that the other part is it's like, oh lover, I'll see you there, waiting in the willows with your autumn hair. Oh lover, I'll see you there after many miles. So it sounds very upbeat. It just happens that his lover is not alive anymore. But it's all about wanting to be with the love of his life. So that seems to be my theme, is reuniting with those you love.
Yeah.
Alive or dead. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, man.
By the way, I'm going to do my post facto before, and it's no wonder that I cannot remember the name of his band, but Willie T. Taylor's band is called the Good Luck Thrift Store Outfit.
Okay.
That's an awesome name. But I agree with you. I don't think I would remember that.
I'd never remember that.
No. So there you go.
So my final choice for this playlist is I think probably one of the most classic band reunions ever, which is The Last Waltz of the band. So the band had been together. I think they had been together for 12 or 15 years, something like that. Then they broke up. They started as the backing band for Dylan, and then they went out on their own and created some of the most amazing pre-Americana, pre-alt country stuff you'll ever hear. I still listen to the band at least once a month. I'll listen to an album through just because they're so good. But then they split up and they got back together in 1978 to do a concert in San Francisco. And not only did they play, but they brought Connie Hawkins. Connie Hawkins? I think Connie Hawkins is a basketball player. Ronnie Hawkins, I think was his name.
Ronnie Hawkins, yeah.
Ronnie. He came back. They had all these great guest stars, but they just played. It's an amazing live performance. It was captured on film. It came out. The Last Waltz came out as a documentary as well. It's well worth watching the documentary, listening to the album. But one of my favorite things that they did is, so they filmed this show, and that is awesome. But then they also filmed about 3 or 4 studio performances of some of their best songs to include in the documentary. And one of those is a performance of The Weight, which is my favorite song by the band ever. But the version that they filmed and performed for the video included Mavis Staples. And she sings half of the verses of that song, and she's got the most amazing voice, and it is such a cool song. I just listen to various versions of The Weight all the time. Sometimes it's the original studio version. Sometimes I listen to their live performance from The Last Waltz. Sometimes I listen to this Mavis Staples version, which technically wasn't live, but was like nothing else that they'd ever done before. So I think it's one of the best reunion albums and one of the best songs from a reunion album that you could listen to. So my choice for this list is The Weight from The Last Waltz. It is so it's The Weight. It's from The Last Waltz Suite, which was part of the video, and that features the Staples singers, including Mavis Staples. But Dylan sang at the show. Van Morrison was there. It's just amazing. But that's my recommendation.
Great rec. I'm going to have to look for that, because last road trip I took with my son, it was really gratifying that he had The Weight on his playlist.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's great as they're getting, I mean, my musical influences have filtered through their playlist through the years, but they're also finding stuff on their own. So he went from that to like other music that kind of surprised me. But he said, yeah, it just kind of came up when I was listening to The Weight. These other songs got recommended. And that's such a great pick. I'm going to have to tell him about that version.
Yeah, there are probably 3 different versions of The Last Waltz that have come out in the last 20 years. There's always a new deluxe one that adds more stuff and outtakes. But any one of them is worth listening to for sure. Which takes us to our final song for our reunions playlist, and the honor goes to Photine Liakos.
This is me back at Watch You Again, and it's Never Let Me Down Again by Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
That is a band, again, I'm going to be obnoxious, but I went in to college liking Depeche Mode. I listened to them all freshman year, their first kind of dark albums and everything, and I love them. And I saw them in concert, and I saw them again last year when they were in Chicago, and the energy, like I felt like I was 20 years old again. It was absolutely incredible. I just love that song. That's a song that like I'll crank in my car if I'm not having a great day. If I'm having a great day and I just want to sing really loudly in the car, I will play that. And it also takes me back. It takes me back to that time, those dances, being at the clubs and dancing to that music.
That's a great choice to finish off the playlist. You were very consistent with the callback songs, because even the songs that I don't necessarily like Talking Heads, I agree with you. If I hear that song, close my eyes, I'm standing on a chair in the middle of the
exactly
main floor of the fraternity house and chair dancing with a bunch of other knuckleheads.
I don't appreciate being called a knucklehead.
All right, so we're going to put together a playlist. I've not quite come up with the title for this particular episode yet, but this will be a reunions playlist. Typically, when we put it up on Spotify and the other streamers, we call it Third Song In Presents, or I think something along those lines. But if you
Okay.
search Third Song in on Spotify or Amazon Music or any of the other streamers, you should be able to find all of our playlists, our season playlists, as well as our special playlists. So keep a look for that and let us know what you think. Which takes us to our recommendations, which is weird to say after we've just recommended all these songs. But this season, Chris and I have been planning to recommend a piece of pop culture from a specific year for each episode, starting with 1981, which was season 1. This is our second episode of the season, and we're going to make some recommendations for 1982. And Pho, I asked you to contribute if you'd like to, and you did. What do you have to recommend that came out in 1982?
1982, In Excess released Shabu Shabbat, and the singles Don't Change and The One Thing, which were kind of, I think, some of their first breakaway hits, at least in the US. And so 1982 is the year that I discovered them. And so I think back, and those are some of the songs and one of the albums that was on constant repeat for me in 1982. And I also was thinking of films, and there were so many good films that year.
Yeah.
But the one that I thought fit the theme of reunion is Diner, which I haven't seen in a really long time. But I remember seeing it back then, and I remember it has this getting back together, kind of people coming back home for an event reunion kind of theme.
Yeah, it's funny because I want to say not first, but maybe second or third episode ever of this podcast. I think one of your recommendations, Chris, was Diner as just a great film in general. And I rewatched it because of that. So I've seen it in the last year, and it holds up really well. And it fits, you're right, it fits theme great. Such a great film. Yeah, that definitely deserves rewatching if you've seen it in the past, but it's been a while. And I In Excess that's a band I really do love. They were short-lived, of course, for tragic reasons, but I do like to go back and listen to In Excess. I think
I have my pop culture moment with In Excess. I saw them play a few times up here in Rockford once when I was in college, and then I saw them in St. Louis after we graduated. And my minute of fame, Michael Hutchins went walking through the audience, and he was walking on the chairs. He was sharing beer with people, and he came to our row, and I had an aisle seat, and he pulled me up. And he sang Never Tear Us Apart with his arm around me on the Jumbotron.
Oh, wow.
Pre-cell phone cameras. So the only documentation I have is my husband was there and he can corroborate the story. But it was amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Such a magnetic person, just incredible. So that's my In Excess personal moment.
You're like awesome. Courtney Cox in the was it the Born in the USA?
Yeah, exactly. Right? It was amazing. Awesome. It's incredible.
Well, speaking of Courtney Cox and a Bruce Springsteen song, my recommendation from 1982 is my favorite Bruce Springsteen album, which is Nebraska. There's not much to say about that. It was a complete departure from what he had done in the past, and it just, to me, showcases what an amazing songwriter he is, and his command of basically another genre of music other than straight ahead rock and roll. And I love that album.
That's a great album.
It is. I usually will tell Tom that I'll listen to stuff, and then I never do. But I've listened to this one. This is probably the only Springsteen album that I like.
Yeah.
That makes sense, actually. So, and actually, that before we forget, because we have forgotten in the past. We've decided that we are now Chris and I are going to rate each other's recommendation for this season. And those ratings are ratings by the well-known worldwide scale of egg burritos with sour cream. So, Chris, where do you recommend Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen on our egg burritos with sour cream scale?
It pains me to do this for a Springsteen album. 5 out of 5. It's awesome album.
Fucking A.
And one of my favorite songs is about Nebraska.
That's true. Yeah, we talked about that. So what are you recommending from the year 1982?
Well, what is it? You go from what's the something to the sublime or whatever?
Sublime to ridiculous.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna go with the 1982's debut album by Night Ranger, Dawn Patrol, for a couple reasons. It's 1982, so that was easy. It set me on the path of being a Night Ranger fan for life. And I mentioned it in my blog, which doesn't time up with when this is going to be released. But they have some of their most pure sort of rock songs on there. Don't Tell Me You Love Me is as catchy a song as you're going to listen to. Sing Me Away is closer to a ballad, which is where they really made their name, probably in a good way and a bad way. But yeah, that one I distinctly remember owning the album, listening to it all the time, and I'll put it right up there with Springsteen's Nebraska. I said almost with a straight face.
all right, so I'm going to rate this, and I can't give it a 5 out of 5.
No, he can't.
I also can't give it a 4 out of 5. But probably because of Don't Tell Me You Love Me, I definitely can give it a 3 out of 5 because that on the strength of that song alone, which I do like a lot, I think it deserves certainly at least a 3 out of 5 rating. So, and we'll post that stuff also on the website. We'll have our recommendations. Chris is in the process of we have to kind of revamp our site in terms of recommendations because of the format we're doing now. But they'll all show up there, and let us know what you think of those recommendations. Let us know what you think of Chris and my ratings of each other's recommendations. Get in touch with us and let us know what you think. Which brings us to post facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
And Chris, I'm guessing, looking at the outline, that you don't have anything.
I never do.
You never do.
It's not that I don't, it's just that I don't acknowledge them.
It's a good way to go through life, I think. I only have one, and it's yet another example of us just kind of not having the information at our fingertips when we're talking about it. You had recommended The Evil Dead, or at least one of the Evil Dead movies last episode, and I made the comment that there was an Ash versus Evil Dead TV show, but I didn't remember the name of it. The title of the Starz Network show is Ash versus Evil Dead. I thought it was still going on, but when I looked it up, it actually ran from 2015 to 2018. So not only is it not going on, but it's been, it was canceled quite a while ago. So I don't know if they re-showed it, because I know I've seen advertisements or conversations about it recently. Maybe they were talking about renewing it or something. But anyway, from what I understand, if you like the Evil Dead movies, because it stars Bruce Campbell,
The Chin.
Yeah, the Chin, exactly. It's supposed to be a good show. I've not seen it. Highly rated though, and it was on Starz, running from 2015 to 2018. Next up, we have staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
Chris and I like to recommend something that's either brand new or coming out in the near future. And in honor of our special guest and her great love for the Beatles, I am recommending an album that is going to be released on December 6th of this year. The album is called Lucinda Williams Sings the Beatles from Abbey Road. And the song that's out right now, that dropped last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, is her cover of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And I'm a Beatles fan. I'm a huge Lucinda Williams fan. And if this song is any indication, the album you're going to like it, Bo. And I'm definitely going to like it because it is, classic Lucinda Williams voice. And, you can't go wrong with the material. So my recommendation, my staff pick, is the song While My Guitar Gently Weeps from the forthcoming album, Lucinda Williams Sings the Beatles from Abbey Road.
Nice.
Chris, what do you have?
Well, you did it in honor of Foe. I'm doing it in honor of myself. I'm choosing an album by a guy that I really like. Co Wetzel has released a new album. We talked, maybe even, I don't know if I did a blog about him. I will if I haven't. His early stuff was pretty raunchy and juvenile, I would argue, but he's got a great voice. He does his own thing. I guess he's almost a modern day, oh shit, what they call themselves back in the, Johnny Cash and just say it.
Troubadour? Is that what
No,
you
not
meant?
Troubadour. What was the
Oh.
rebellion group? Cash and Waylon Jennings and all
Oh,
them.
Outlaw Country.
The outlaw country, like he does his own thing, both good and bad. His new album, I think, is showing a level of maturity that he's lacked. The album is called Nine Lives, and even though I just said that, my favorite song on it, and it's been released for a couple weeks now, a couple months probably, is called High Road. It's a duet. It's the high road is a play on words. He said he's going to take the high road, but the high part is that he's getting high because he doesn't need a ticket to your, I don't need a ticket to your shit show is my favorite line from it. That's closer to his more juvenile stuff, but it's a really good song. He has a song called Lee, Leigh, saying that he's going to have to leave Texas because every woman in Texas has a name that ends with Lee, and they've all broken up with him or made his life miserable. So he's got to go to another state where they have different names. And then I do tie it in. He's got a song called Running Low, which is about a relationship that's sort of fallen apart, but he's doing everything he can to get back with her. So a bit of a reunion. So Co Wetzel's Nine Lives just came out as an album. He continues to grow and mature as a musician. So it'd be good to check him out.
Cool. Cool. I believe that album actually dropped on the morning of this recording.
I think it did, yeah.
I think it just came out. I just added it to my Apple library. And then for a change, to do something a little bit different, we're going to recommend some songs that we're going to put on our season-long playlist. These songs, I know I tried, and I believe Chris tried to equate or connect to our theme, the reunions theme for this episode. And they will be added to third song in season 5, which is out now currently by the time you hear this, we'll have 4 songs on that playlist, and we'll add 2 every episode until the end of the season. My playlist pick for episode 2 is Running with Our Eyes Closed by Jason Isbell from 2020. And the reason I picked it is because it's from his album, which is titled Reunions, which is a really, really cheap way to get it in there, but great song. So I'm standing by.
Boy, that didn't take any thought at all.
Yes, you've described my approach.
All right, my playlist is far more thoughtful than Tom's is. I'm going with you've heard her mentioned already, but Jill Andrews' first solo album. Actually, I'm sorry, it was an EP. It was recorded in 2009. And often you'll see on songs they'll say like if they're recording with somebody else who's singing with them. But she pretty quietly does a duet with her former partner from the Everybody Fields. And what's interesting is the song's a breakup song, but there are some just really beautiful harmonizing moments in it where he compliments her singing. And if you know the band, if you know the fact that they broke up, and I don't think the breakup was overly amicable. I think there may have been some issues. So it's really cool that he agreed or she got him to sing on this song. It's a really beautiful song. It is a breakup song. So I'm closing the episode in my usual way where I bring us all down.
Let me get this clear though. The word reunion isn't in there anywhere?
No, man, you gotta like connect the dots. I mean, and you never do. You just
I'm
like,
sorry, it's too
oh,
fucking
it's an
subtle for
album.
me.
It's an album called Reunions. Let me do that one. Here's an actual reunion that's happening, and it's very subtle and quiet. I even put that. I said a quiet, uncredited reunion with Sam Quinn.
It's the first
the
thing I
script.
always think of when I think of you is subtle, Chris.
Yeah.
I want to give my thanks to our special guest, Photine Liakos. We can't thank you enough for appearing with us. I was dead on right when I said that you have a lot of stuff to tell us about. You have a very interesting history, and I hope we can have you come back someday soon.
I know that almost all doctors are really smart, but what I've always found is that the best doctors that I've ever had are those who are just more human, and you define I mean, as humane as anyone, everything you've done for your parents and your kids and all your patients, what you're doing right now in the free clinic. I don't know what it means to you, but I'm super impressed, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
That means the world to me. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Look for What We Bring to the Practice of Medicine, published by Kent State University Press. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, basically anywhere you shop for books. And keep your eye out. I have a feeling we're going to see more from Photine in the future. Third Song In was recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Joliet, Illinois, and Sycamore, Illinois, this episode. You can email us with your comments or suggestions or questions at thirdsongin@gmail.com. You please follow us, rate and review us, download our episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. We broadcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. Rate us, give us all your stars. Please give us all your stars. Look for the podcast and lots of extra content on thirdsonginpodcast.com. That includes many pages that include our recommendations, our blog, which comes out weekly, as well as our As Mentioned page, where you'll find a link to find the book that Photine contributed to. We also have a Facebook page. You can communicate to us via Facebook. You can look there for links to our blogs, to our episodes, and to all kinds of other stuff. You have been listening to Third Song In. Thanks for listening.
All right. I'm ready.
Do it. Say that part.
Welcome to fuck. You know what? I
See?
hate when you
You are the
when you
fucking
make me do
worst.
that.
You're horrible.
I can't hear you. You got your damn mute on.
No, I don't want to say it.